Welcome to Email After Hours by SenderScore, powered by Validity.
We're your hosts. My name is Guy Hansen.
And I'm Danielle Gallant, and this is Email After Hours. Today, we're tackling a topic that feels long overdue, and that is the, potential death of the no reply email address. So in the past, it was recommended as a best practice that senders use valid, reachable reply addresses, but it was perhaps one of the least adopted best practices in email, kind of got forgotten about. But now, thanks to some updated mailbox provider recommendations, the tide might be turning there. So we're going to get into why on today's episode.
That's right. And joining us, we've got Leah Miranda, Head of Demand Gen and Lifecycle Marketing at Zapier, and a self-described email geek who builds high-performing teams and scalable growth strategies. Leah has led Lifecycle and email programs across Zapier, Campaign Monitor, and has recently spoken at Customer I/O Unpacked about using AI to triage reply to inboxes. So absolutely the right person to have with us today. Leah, welcome to Email After Hours. It's really great to have you with us today.
I am super excited. I'm going to wave. I like to wave all these things. Yeah, I'm super excited. I've been a longtime listener, fan of the show. So you're making dreams come true here on a Friday.
We love that. And really, before we get into today's topic, a little starter for us, a little icebreaker. Your LinkedIn headline says, "I'm just a girl standing in front of a CEO asking them not to call it an e-blast," which is maybe my favorite headline so far on LinkedIn. And so, question for you: what is the worst email terminology that you still hear in the wild?
I don't know if it's worse, and maybe it's a phrase. I bought a list. Or can we buy a list? I think this just always just sends me into a panic. I do get a little persnickety about there being a dash in email. I just, it's a camp that I'm living in and a hill I'll die on. But yeah, I think nothing is more jarring though than in an e-blast, and hopefully you're a fan of Notting Hill and understand the reference. But yeah, anytime someone says blast, e-blast, it is so descriptive of what they're trying to do and accomplish that I'm like, no one has ever wanted that for a customer. No one has woken up and be like, we should just blast some
Just
people.
blast it out today, right?
No.
We should just let it rip.
No.
Okay. I think that sets the tone straight away. So yeah, let's start with the big picture. I feel like we spent a lot of time over the last couple of years, especially talking about why the use of no reply at really needs to be retired. So from your perspective, why should brands actually want their subscribers to reply to their emails?
It just feels common sense. Like you would never send somebody and be like, I mean, a lot of emails are like, we launched this thing or we did something cool. And it almost invites them to ask a question or some sort of follow up. Or if it's like an automated message, they did a form or, they realize, oh, I actually forgot to add something into it. It just feels like the start of a conversation, and it's hard to like start a conversation and then immediately turn around your back to someone. Like that would be an odd thing to do. And that's really what that no reply does. And so, for me, I think it's it's a place where it's a treasure trove, if you will, of just information, and people reaching out. You have the errant person of like, I don't like this redesign, and that's fair. But then you have that customer who's like, oh, I'm interested in this product, and it's like, how many times have people like, without even knowing about it, responded to a no reply email of like, I would like to give you my money, and then it goes nowhere, and that makes me sad for the business and the customer because they were trying.
When we were having our kind of internal call before to talk about maybe a great topic for today and getting onto this one, we discussed our own like no reply or like mailboxes that we've seen these responses come into, and a treasure trove is a perfect way to put that, I think. Now, on paper, switching from like no reply at to reply at addresses sounds simple. But for higher volume email programs that are sending tens of millions of emails and potentially generating thousands of replies, the inbox can be overwhelmed very quickly. and there can be a lot kind of backed up in there. So, why is the switch easier said than done?
I think it comes down to like the management of it. I think back in the day, like when we think about if you were being like a good little email marketer and you had a reply, you unfortunately, and I think we maybe even talked about this before, like we had to manage those replies, and those replies, like it's a treasure trove, sure, but there's some weird things in that inbox. I remember being a campaign monitor. I think my biggest fear was like seeing some sort of like image included. And it was just like, I was like, I don't know what I'm about to click into. I don't really, or you have, like you've got singles in your area and you're like, I didn't really need to know that. And those are just like, the mild versions. And so, it was tough, like you switch and you really wouldn't feel that like, was this worth it? Because I've just spent 3 hours going through when you're such a high volume sender. I've spent 3 hours going through really uncomfortable replies and emails. But I think if I could, like, why I think it makes it better today, and I'm going to say the fun word, AI, agents, agentic. And that's what makes, I think, the switch a lot easier now for companies versus having someone or that poor lonely, because it usually happened after hours. Like it wasn't like a number one thing. You'd be like, oh my gosh, it's been 3 months since I checked that inbox. I should probably go check it. At least that's what I used to do. Sorry to my coworkers at Campaign Monitor. You now know the my horrible secret.
In your customer IO talk, you described the reply to inbox as something of a gold mine, but a lot of teams, a lot of email teams are still ignoring it. I guess the next question is what kind of messages might be sitting in there? We're probably talking about complaints and unsubscribe, but sales opportunities, even praise. And I guess we start with complaints. I think they're particularly interesting because marketers often perceive them as a negative. But at the end of the day, it's an engagement signal. It's like the other side of the engagement coin where you got clicks on the one side and complaints on the other. But I did say to Danielle, I introduced her to a new expression, but back in the day, we used to refer to reply to complaints as flames, because these are people who aren't just hitting a button. They're really mad at you. They're mad at you to the point that they're actually going to write a little letter and tell you why they're mad. So is that still a good thing? Can that still be useful customer experience feedback?
I mean, I think so. I would love to do a study on people who do this. I don't think I've ever once gotten an email. I may have been miffed about it, but I've never replied to it. So I would love to know just like the ethos psyche of that reply. However, it hit something. It hit a nerve. It hit, and I think sometimes, like especially, I'm going to age myself a bit. We kind of grew up with the internet, and then we realize, oh, we could say things almost into the void, and we see that come to life in those sort of I do like that flame. We get flamed, if you will. But I think what's great about it is I always like to respond to them. We respond to a certain degree. I don't flame back, I guess, is what I would caution
How
everybody. Like,
dare
no one,
you? How
yeah, yeah.
absolutely dare
Maybe
you?
write it in like, your AI agent and you yell at your agent and then say, can you make this now a professional response? But I always like to, we a famous one, we redesigned our newsletter and someone was not happy about it. They were just angry and they wrote a very long email. I think it was longer than the actual newsletter. And so what we did is I responded. It was like, hey, we're gonna call this person Chris just for fun. It's like, hey Chris, like thank you so much for your feedback. I hear that you don't like the redesign. I'd be curious to know what about it didn't you like? Is there a section that we removed that you were expected to see? And then what was great is Chris respond. He was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I didn't realize someone was going to read this." And I was like, and so I took someone who was like really sort of like miffed at us, and you can take that relationship, even if it's a complaint, like treat it with empathy, go at it with curiosity, like something happened that they wanted to engage. And if you can, like, he was like, oh, well, really what I wanted to see was like this section. I was upset that like this section removed. I was like, great, we can look to put it back in the next one. And we even did like a little shout out to Chris. And it was fun. And he was excited about it. He responded. And so, we took a kind of a negative situation, turned it positive. And that could be said for anything. If someone's having, I think a big one that we see often is the complaint has nothing to do with maybe the message you sent. It's a customer support question. They're like, I've been logged out of my account for months and I can't get anybody on the phone. And it's like, that's a way for you to step in and be like, hey, well, gee golly, let me help you out. You can service it up to your support team, get them back on the right track. And you take something that could have been a potential churn for an account and made it into a positive relationship. So that's why I think like it's worth going through and reading the flames and responding to them with empathy.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because just that is like the internet in a nutshell, right? If people think that they are screaming into a void, they will scream or say something, like they will express themselves, and a relationship can so easily be built with with just the option that somebody's reading it. But what about praise? I'm sure we're not getting praise. Well, maybe I'm wrong. My assumption is that we're not getting praise in there in those reply addresses as much as maybe the flames or the feedback or the customer service emails, but they do happen for sure. And we all understand the great power of customer advocacy. So, how should teams identify and then use those positive replies?
Yeah, I think you hit on like the first one is the most ideal is that customer advocacy. And you say, oh my gosh, I've been a long time fan. I don't get that much fan mail. I'm going to be really honest, but we do like every now and then, people like, especially when you work at like some really fun brands, like, I've been using Zapier for like years and I love this. And you did this new feature and it's like, okay, cool. Um, let's hand that off to our customer advocacy. Like, could we either, do a story either for, our socials? Could it be a larger brand story if it's a bigger account? Or can we just send that person some swag? It's taking that and connecting with the customers, I think is really great. The other side of the praise is when people, comment on a marketing campaign that you did. Like that's exciting. And it's, no, for most people, most teams, marketing campaigns aren't built in like a single person. It's you've got your ads team, your brand team, your product marketing. They might not be like a 50-person team on each, but it's a group of people that are bringing this stuff to life. And it's always great to throw those in public channels. So that's something I love to do with the team is if we launched something or did an event and we got some really great positive feedback, I throw that out. And that I'm definitely like tagging our, CMO and our CEO and be like, hey, like we did this really cool thing. And that's just, I think those positive vibes kind of help with the flames, if you will. You kind of
Totally.
balance it out. And yeah, I think sometimes they just don't get surfaced, or sometimes we read them in the inbox and we're like, oh, that was nice. And we kind of move on. And it's like, it's a nice pause to say, hey, we're doing something. We're connecting with people. And it's not just us like behind screens pressing buttons.
That's right. And especially when it's like a little unexpected, it's even nicer. Sales interest feels like it could be the big missed opportunity here. Do you think there's potentially a load of pipeline, unexpected pipeline that's quietly rotting away in unattended inboxes?
Yes, I'm going to guarantee that there's millions of pipeline. No, I don't know if there's millions, but there's definitely pipeline in there. Or I would say maybe even like pipeline adjacent. People are just, we see that sometimes with Zapier, where people are reaching out and they're like, "Hey, I'm just kind of curious. I want to do some sort of trial. I'm not sure which trial to use." And if that goes unanswered, it's tough. They may have trialed at the end. They may have figured it out, but it's also a part for us to be like, hey, I know you want a trial, but we'd actually love to build like a custom trial for you. And that's where it's like pipeline adjacent. It's like, hey, just a little nurturing and we get to a potential large deal size. And then you will have those errant people of, hey, I'm trying to buy this and I can't. And like the amount of those type of messages, especially if you're in like a D2C, even B2B, especially like in the SaaS like industry, you'll have a lot of people do that. They're like, "Hey, I'm running up to this error screen. I'm trying to buy this. I'm trying to self-serve buy this." And if you get enough of those, like that's a significant amount of sales revenue and self-serve revenue that you're just missing because no one's responding. Now, you could argue most people will find a way and go to like your help, maybe your chat on your website. But I mean, at a certain point, I don't know about you, but if it's difficult to like purchase something, I'm done because there's probably another product that was on my list that I'm like, oh, like if they're going to respond to me in a quicker way, like that's what I'd prefer. And so, I mean, yeah, I would highly encourage you if you have an inbox that you haven't checked in like the last like 3 months, go in there, go check, go see what's in there. And then I think from that is you can start to build those automations. I think it's tough to have this just like as a single person's job because you'll forget about it, or if a team is doing it, they'll forget about it too. We're human. But I think the great thing, like I said, is that you can build agents around this. You can build rules, even if you're, say, not agentic, but you can build rules within your inbox to say, is it an out of office reply? Yeah, you probably don't want to deal with those. Um, if it is something that you can have an agent look at and say, hey, this was a complaint. Is it support related? Let's send it over to support. And that is, I don't know, I think one of the coolest things about AI aside, like the coolest things about how we're working in today's age and the cool things that we can do now. And I don't know, I get a little excited and nerdy about it.
Well, speaking of which, that's a perfect segue because in your role now, you have been building response handling systems using AI. So, what specific use cases have you been tackling? And then what have you learned that maybe surprised you about that?
Yeah. So we have an agent that goes through and looks at our inboxes because we've got a couple for like our newsletters, events, and for any sort of like high touch events, for instance. We do this really great shout out to my events team. It's this like signature outpost events where we'll fly people out. We recently took a whole bunch of people to the Cape and they had lobster. It was great. We talked about automation, AI, at lobster. They should always go together. So, we can set up an agent where someone can reply and say, "Hey, I have a question about an agenda." And those are pretty easy questions that we can answer. And if we say, "Hey, great, here's the information you have," or "Here's the agenda that's going to be going out," we don't really need someone to really manage that. So that's a really nice thing to do. Or the agent can say, "Hey, I don't actually know what this person's asking." And then it'll flag us in Slack saying, "Hey, you had this email. Can someone on the email team reach out to them?" And I like this setup because it keeps a human in the loop. It gives them guardrails. And so when building, if you're going to build this, I think there's two ways that you can do it. One is truly just agentic. You have an agent, it can make decisions on its own. You can add in if you're unsure, send me like a message or send me an email, ping me somehow. Or you can have something that's maybe a little bit more deterministic. And so that's what I use for our large send. So, like our newsletters, you have to imagine we're sending out millions of emails, if you will. So, how do I go through and make sure that it is filing them the correct way? And so that's where that deterministic. And so I can have AI basically label it, say, hey, I'm pretty sure this is going to be customer support. It'll go down the customer support route. If it is praise, it'll go down the praise way. If it's an unknown, again, I always have that human in the loop so we can go in and review it. If it's sales, that is the one that I actually always have a human in the loop because the last thing we want to do as marketers and be like, I sent you a sales lead. And they're like, Leah, this was not this. Please don't ever send me these type of leads again. We don't want that tension. That's never great. So I always go through and say, okay, this is being marked. AI thinks this is a sales lead. Is it truly a sales lead? Are they just asking like, hey, I want to buy this account? Is it something that we could do if it's a self-serve model? Or is it something that what I like to do is say, oh yeah, this is a sales lead. And then I have another agent that sits on top of that once I say, yes, this is a sales lead that will go through, it'll look at that person's account if there's any activity either from that person or the top level account, and then put together a nice little package for the sales team. So we can say, hey, they reached out from this. Here's their question. Here's a little bit about their account. please reach out. And I think that that's a really nice way to support your team, make sure that they have context without working, I think, 80 hours a week.
Got to tell you, I was counting though. You mentioned 3 times the importance of a human being in the loop. And that's important, isn't it? Because it feels like for it to work, there's got to be a balance between letting AI do the heavy lifting on the one side and the fact that human judgment is still essential on the other. So what does that look like in practice? What have you learned?
Yeah, I think eventually, and maybe I've just had too much AI Kool-Aid lately. I think eventually I'll get to the point that I'm like, yeah, AI can definitely handle this. I don't think we're anywhere near that right now. I am optimistically cautious is probably the best way I can say that. So I think having that human in the loop and that judgment also just helps feed the AI as well. And so how I've got it set up is that it will basically take a look and say, hey, no, we actually got this wrong. And here's why. And I can put in that why. And so it'll then begin to like feed that model. And so it'll become smarter and smarter. So if you build something out like this, have a human in the loop for every single step. Build out that model for you, and then you can start like taking it back a little bit. So for instance, praise is the one flow that I don't have any human in the loop. It'll just go into we've got like a praise like Slack channel. But for everything else, I think if you're not sure about the model, or if you have any sort of responses that you are like going to be automating from that, have a human in the loop, because the last thing you want is for AI to hallucinate, to say, yeah, you can have this plan and it's free this month. And so like and it's like, oh my gosh, now it's like on a Zapier branded, email account and legally binding. Like we don't want to do that. So trust AI to help you do your work. Don't trust AI to do all of your work, is at the end of the day where I tell my team to focus on. Because yeah, it's one of those things that if you get it right, it's wonderful. If you get it wrong, you get it really, really wrong.
Yeah.
And that is what should keep us up at night. Sorry, the tone got really dark there for a second.
No, it didn't. I was just about to say, I think that like what you were describing in terms of like, certain reply types are being tackled already, some aren't. Is that for senders who want to start? Whenever we talk about AI, which is always, we're all on the Kool-Aid. I think that it becomes really overwhelming to be like, I want to do this, but what actually do I do? Like, what are the steps first? Where do I begin? So for people who want to start managing replies more intentionally, what should they be doing first? Is it starting with a certain type? Like, what's step one?
I would say that's a great question. I would take a look at your inbox today. So imagine we don't have any AI set up. Take a look at your inbox today. What type of responses are you getting the most of? Start with that one. More than likely, it'll probably be either on the like customer service support side, or potentially the sales side. So let's say the customer support side. You could build up just a single flow, gets an email in. There's an AI step in there to say, can you qualify? Is this person looking for customer support? Then you can put like common phrases that you see from the kind of the research you just did, and say they're looking for, I can't access my account, I'm having trouble logging in, my payment failed. Those things that might come up, add those in, and then add in the human in the loop for that and say, hey, we've identified this as a customer support. And say if you wanted to like have it draft a message and say, hey, I was going to send a message, here's what the message would be, and then have that human in the loop approval step. So what it might look like for you is you get like a Teams or a Slack notification saying, hey, here's their message, here's how we've defined it, and then here's my reply. And at that point, you can say, yes, this is correct. Or you could potentially edit that message. And that's how I would start. It's just a single use case, a single kind of reply. And even with the reply, I mean, give your AI an example of what a good reply is. Because usually it's if it's a payment, here's the link that they need to go to. If it's a more serious complaint, like here's our support hotline that you can call 24/7, or I'd encourage you to chat. I've also forwarded this on to our support team. And you can have those kind of like base templates in there that it'll start to pull from. And then once you get confident in there, go to that next most common one, which, like I said, might be sales, might be praise. And then you can start to like build branches, if you will, if you have like a deterministic workflow, or just add on new agents. And that would be my recommendation. Don't try to build the example that I gave at first, because that's going to be overwhelming. The example I gave is months and months of iterations. We've added things on. And also, I would say expect things to be wrong at the beginning. I think it's like if you've ever had any sort of like ChatGPT skill or Claude skill at the beginning, it's just a lot of like you've got to put in a lot of input into it before you start getting some semi good responses. And then, suddenly around, after a couple of months, you're like, oh yeah, this is like really getting it. It just needs that that long. So think of it as like you're onboarding a new employee, and you wouldn't expect a new employee just to know everything off the gate. Like you're going to have to do some coaching.
Really? So Claude's going to have to watch about a week's worth of videos.
Exactly. And some sort of harassment training, I assume.
Let's talk about deliverability for a moment, because we love deliverability almost as much as we love AI. And what I'm thinking of specifically here, Leah, is round about this time last year, Microsoft belatedly launched their bulk sender requirements. And part of their guidance was an explicit statement that they specifically recommend that senders should use a replyable address, which was really interesting, especially because we all know that today's best practices have a bit of a habit of becoming tomorrow's new bulk sender requirements. So is this something that we should be paying attention to? And, does operating a real reply to inbox align with what mailbox providers increasingly are wanting to see from legitimate senders?
I mean, 100%. I think, especially like if we could like go back in time. Do you remember GDPR? That was a thing. Back
Do
in
I
the day.
remember?
Yeah, do you remember? And it was always interesting to see like who was freaking out about it. And like without passing any judgment, we won't say any names here, but like the people freaking out about it, it was kind of like, but like you do need to opt in. Like, are you
Yeah.
emailing people who didn't want to be emailed? Like that sort of, and so yes, I 100% agree. I think today's best practices will be required in the future. It might be a year from now, it might be 3 years from now. My guess is the EU would do it first, which is great, but build those best practices in now. And like this is one of those. I think you don't want to be caught in a GDPR situation of like, well, we have just been emailing and buying lists, and that's not cool. If you're doing that now, stop it. It's 2026, y'all. That's not cool. And then for this, yeah, I mean, it should. I would be really surprised to see like really reputable, great email programs not have this. And if you are sitting there thinking, I'm doing it all, but this is like, that's okay too. Like these best practices come in, I would recommend taking and building out that reply to, and then also manage it. I think the other problem with this is it will become a standard eventually. Um, but if it's a standard and you have a reply to email address and you're back at the beginning of this conversation where just no one's checking it, that's also not cool. And the email industry can't standardize whether or not you respond to replies. It's just whether or not you have that reply to address. So like bake those into your team, how you're structured. Like I said, if it's someone just handling the replies one-on-one, great. If it's an agent and you have that ability and tool stack, like great, build that out. But yeah, it always be, I mean, I think email marketers worth their sort of weight, if you will, are always forward looking, are always thinking, because at the end of the day, this comes down to the principle of what's best for my customers? What's best for my prospects? Am I just, if you're just blasting into the void, like gross, uh, sorry, there's just so much judgment on this talk. I have like strong feelings. Like you
We're with
can,
you.
yeah, you can email like a lot of people. And I'm not even saying like every email needs to be like to like bespoke to 5 people. Like you can still send a mass newsletter, but have that newsletter segmented, have it be dynamic content. I think if you are a marketer that you're like, yeah, this makes sense, you're going to be fine. You're going to have those forward looking practices. And this is just one of those. And, I kind of am excited about the making this. I would like to see the industry make this a standard. I wish if we had the ability to like make people actually like manage the inboxes too, because it becomes a void, if you will. So yeah, build those practices today.
We had a 2026, our litmus state of email report. And it's really one of the things that we found, or there were themes, right, amongst senders that are those top performers that are achieving the highest ROI from the email channel. And one of those things is that they are, well, two of them, many of them, is that they're focused on building relationships through much more targeted communications that catch the subscriber where they are in the journey. Like that is the personalization element. And so I wonder with this too, like, does this functioning monitored reply address kind of fit into that, like moving kind of a little bit away from broadcast messages and more to this like conversational relationship building customer journey? I think it sounds like like an integral part of that.
I would think so. I think where we're going and we're in this like weird space right now where everyone can write emails and send emails. You can build them with AI and blast them all over the place. And that's cool. Not really, but it's what people are doing. I think what people are going to be expecting in the future is exactly what you just said. And I think the amount of tools that we have to when I think about my email campaigns that I'm sending out that are kind of those relationship buildings, I'm looking at, okay, what product data do they have? What have they been doing, from a brand standpoint? What have they been doing on social media? Not in like a creepy way, but like also like what pages on our site have they been visiting? Like, how can that all influence that conversation? And we'd want that same love and respect for this inbox, this reply inbox. And so you can have, I'm talking about like really advanced building, but you can then have somebody like say it's a customer support thing. All of those things I just described that you would do on the front end, you could potentially do on the back end if they're reaching out. And then you can say kind of like the sales version of that, but for customer support. You could have a customer support agent take a look at their account, see some information, and then you are starting from, hey, I'm Leah from our customer support. How can I help you today? You're jumping in and already addressing their problems. And so, uh, yeah, I think that is where we should be going with the technology. And I think that's us using the technology for good rather than I can now email, millions of people a minute with AI. Like that's that's not fun.
Good for
But
you guys.
yeah,
Should we be
I
doing it
mean,
though?
I say this in like I say this like not saying that we have all the answers or that we're doing everything right here. Like we screw up, we grab the wrong data points. Like that is natural, but I think it is the spirit of which you're trying to do it. We're trying to have a conversation with somebody, not just be like, I see leaders like you doing. It's like, ugh, bless you. Please don't ever send me an email that says that.
Guy and I have such good examples that we've talked about on the podcast before where people have reached out to us being like, we loved your appearance at this conference that we didn't attend. They were supposed to attend, but we didn't. And it's just like little tiny more looking would solve it. But this has been such a great conversation. I am with you 100%. It sounds like our email morality is kind of aligned in what we want to see and what we don't want to see. So, kind of just to close it out today, if a brand is still using a no reply today, what's like a one liner that you would deliver to convince them to change, to make the switch?
You're losing customers and sales if you don't.
Bam. True.
Man, gen, and lifecycle person. So pipeline is a little, I'm thinking about pipeline, but I'm also, like you're losing customers at the end of the day. You will lose customers if you don't have this. And if customers are important to your brand, you should do this.
I think we will wrap up on that note because we can't beat it. Leah, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your perspective on reply to inboxes. And man, we covered a lot of stuff today. AI triage, lifecycle marketing, why customer replies deserve a lot more attention than they normally get. If our listeners want to connect with you and learn a bit more about what you're doing, what's the best way for them to reach out?
LinkedIn. Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. To our listeners, be sure to tune in next time in 2 weeks' time. Hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And absolutely don't forget to visit senderscore.org for more great resources to help you become even stronger senders.
And Guy and I are always super proud of the guests that join us on Email After Hours, and we're always looking for new guests to feature on future episodes too. So if you'd like to join us for an upcoming episode, drop a comment, message us too on LinkedIn, or fill out the guest form that's linked in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Bye, guys.
Be sure to tune in next time and hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And don't forget to visit senderscore.com for loads more great resources to help you become a stronger sender.
To all you sleepless senders out there, thank you for joining us after hours, and see you next time.